The topic
Okay.
will be psychopaths and the psychopathic worldview. First, we should probably define what we mean by psychopaths, and in that we don't necessarily mean the clinical definition of psychopathy, right? It could be closer to a sociopath, or those for whom common human emotions are seen as either alien or bad things, right?
Yeah. Common human emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, these are interesting points that I don't think we really discussed.
Not before. Not recorded. But that's
I mean, that's why we have these conversations, is because we come up with stuff and we think of new things and we talk about those things, and it's always fresh. So so the psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever, they're a unique breed.
Yeah, we're talking general. We're gonna say psychopaths because that's just the word that we have come up with that closest identifies the group of or subset of people that we're trying to talk about, right? Sociopath. This would include sociopaths. You know, even myself to some degree could be considered in that larger group, right? Where competition is valued. Competition for competition's sake is valued over collective group bargaining, or what I might call collectivism, right? Where you're working as a group towards a single goal. The sort of idea of if you're running from a bear with your friend, the easiest way to save yourself is to trip your friend, right? That's an example of what we might call psychopathy, right?
Yeah, where they're trying to solve problems, but they do it with almost extreme disregard for the well-being of others.
Yes, for anyone but themselves.
They just won't factor.
And it seems to be a trend that we see amongst many of the rich or powerful, or what people would say are the elites. But once again, I don't like that word either. But we'll use elites for now. We can talk about why I don't like elites later.
I have on the last video I said some things that I wish that I had gone back and corrected.
Oh yeah.
And that's gonna just keep happening. I think I'm not gonna bother at this point.
Yeah, we just move forward.
We're gonna struggle with the terms, and it's just gonna, we're gonna slip and say whatever.
Yeah.
But with things like psychopath and elite, I don't know if we're really tracking what we're talking about. We're not just talking about buttheads.
Yeah. No, we're talking about smart people who, very smart people who are out for themselves, right? They have made the conscious decision that they are going to work solely for themselves, and they're not going to try to better society for any other reason. Right? Like if they work for themselves and only themselves, and somehow society gets better, then good, whatever. But ultimately, it's about making sure that they are not only provided for, but they succeed beyond anyone else, to the point of even holding others back, just so that they can feel like they have succeeded over everyone else.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the people that think that humans are destroying the planet, destroying the environment, and the solution to it is to kill the humans?
Those are idiots. I mean, if you think of like the term of ecology, and that we're going to suffer through nature will be aggressive against. Nature's always been aggressive against us. There's never been a time in which humans have not had to struggle against natural forces, right? That's one of the archetypes, even like Jung identified it as a storytelling archetype. It's that ingrained into us. right? And it has always been a big factor in living in like the human condition. And so nature has never been kind to humans, and apparently we give it right back right now. We've achieved a level of progress where humans can actually be unkind to nature, if you want to think about it like that. But ultimately, all we're doing right now is creating problems for ourselves in the future, right? We're essentially creating tech debt, which for those who are not computer scientists in the field, that means you're solving a bunch of problems, right, that are immediate problems up front. And you know that later on, all those solutions are wrong and need to be reworked. And that's what essentially humanity has done. With the Industrial Revolution, we solved a whole crap ton of problems. Medical problems, agricultural problems. You know, we solved tons of problems. But the solutions to those problems were not the greatest solutions. They were kind of slapped together, right? You know, how are we going to increase farm yields? Well, we're going to pump a bunch of fertilizer, nitrogen, into the ground, and that will increase farm yields. It's a pretty inelegant solution to the problem of you know, how do we feed more people?
There's a lot of ugly trade-offs like that, where you're borrowing a problem, or where is it? Like it's like you're creating a solution now by creating a problem in the future. Yes. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And so you know, what we've done to the planet is essentially built up all this, you know, made all these problems for ourselves that we can solve. Humanity can solve problems. Humans are fairly good at solving problems, especially if there's an urgency behind us. And so it seems like we've reached a level of urgency where we need to solve problems, and I think we will. I think ultimately we are capable enough to solve the problems that we have created for ourselves. And
I mean, ultimately,
and if we're not,
when it comes to problems,
if we're not, we're all going to die, and that's just the way, right? So it doesn't, like, either way, it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, we don't want to suffer these problems.
No, I don't want to suffer the problem.
We're entirely capable of not suffering through these problems.
Right.
We don't need to. We just build the knowledge that solves it. And it's essentially as easy as that. Although, I mean, there's a certain amount of trial and error correction. But we don't want to live with the problems here, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to solve a problem now just to have it come up later. I think that's what they call kick the can down the road.
Yeah. I
don't think we want to be kicking that can down the road, and I think especially not if the can gets larger and larger as you kick it.
Yeah, that's another question that has to be resolved, I think, in the whole debate of what humans have been doing to the ecology of the planet. And so
that larger can. I mean, look at the situation here. These that we just keep kicking down. The global debt.
Yeah.
It's just getting bigger and bigger. It's an exponential thing because it keeps compounding on itself, and no one ever has the amount of money to pay anything beyond the principal.
Right.
Because that's the only money that's ever created is what's in the principal. So the game itself is designed to
kick the can down the road.
Let individuals pay off their own debt, but the system itself keeps accumulating debt throughout. There's no one is ever paying any of that. And I think that's pretty well known.
Right.
I think they did that on purpose.
Right.
Long ago. And it just ends up being the biggest Ponzi scheme the world has ever seen.
Right, and you're talking about the banking monetary system, essentially loans.
Right.
And loans I want to point out, loans did solve a problem. there was a problem that was solved from loans, which is liquidity, right? Yeah. You need to be able to buy certain things that will take years to pay off, which, you need now in order to progress, right?
Yeah.
You can't, without liquidity of, any monetary system, you can't barter for a house, right? How are you going to achieve that much wealth in a small span of time? You're not, especially if you're in, industrial England, right? 1800s Victoria in England. You're not going to be able to do it unless you have the ability to, unless you're a lord and you own people, or, or you're not a free person and you're an indentured servant and you live inside of a house, so it's not a problem for you. You live inside your master provides you with some sort of house. None of those are great solutions to that problem, and the better solution is loans. The only problem is loans don't really, they are never-ending debt, as you pointed out.
System-wide, at least.
System-wide, yes. Yeah,
but the bigger problem here is the people running the system.
Yes.
Not exactly. It's not that they're the problem. It's that they're allowed to continue to run a system that is just running us into the ground.
Right.
Over and over again, it does this. Just looking at history, we're just waiting for the big one, the big crash.
Yeah, the next big crash.
But we have these people that are essentially running things that are doing things at their own whim, much to the detriment of most people. And there's not a lot anyone can do about that.
No.
Not a lot. I mean, there's some things, but
yeah, but you'd have to do things that a individual would probably be unwilling to do, and that's part of the interesting conundrum of a revolution. In order for a revolution to happen, it has to get so bad that it's worth risking your life to revolt. Right?
Yeah.
So people talk a lot. People talk a lot about, we're going to revolt and we're going to throw over our overlords, and it has to get bad. Like, apparently worse than Venezuela bad. Right? People are starving to death in Venezuela, and they still have not been able to oust their dictator. Now, granted, I'll admit it's a smaller population, so it's probably easier to maintain control, but still. So
yeah, it's also this strange situation where the upper echelon has this weird cult that it's like a club. Yeah. It is a club, basically.
It is a club.
Or a collection of clubs.
Yeah.
Some of them are even called clubs. But it's essentially a weird belief system.
Yeah.
Whereby the person is really just looking out for themselves, and they do not want to be on the bottom of the heap because they understand how psychopathic everyone else is.
Right.
And they also assume everyone has this tendency.
Yes.
Everyone. Literally everyone has this deep sociopathic urge
to just
that they can't shake, because that in their mind that's what it is. That's who we are.
Yep.
And they're just being more honest than most, or something.
That is something.
There's this weird belief system.
That's something that I've heard said. That I really enjoy I don't know if it's irony, but I enjoy the phrase, they're just being more honest than most.
Yeah, but they're just trying to take virtues where there are none.
Yeah.
That's it. Because it breaks down, because the rest of the time they aren't being honest at all, and they know it.
Right.
And they certainly aren't being honest in this regard. They're deluding themselves. Right. They're lying to themselves about how honest they are.
Because they're not honest.
They're not. They're just trying to feel better about being sociopathic, where, in order to feel good as that sort of person, you have to do strange things.
Yeah.
That most people don't find enjoyable.
Yeah.
Some of these people do things that most people would find
abhorrent.
Like something you wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
There would be no length of pole anyone wants to use
to touch. Yeah.
The kinds of things they do for pleasure.
Yep. And so
these are the kinds of people running the joint. And it's this circle jerk of kind of an echo chamber amongst themselves.
Yep. Of how the world works, right?
Of how the world works, because they can't bring themselves to listen to the lesser people.
No. Why would
or whatever else.
Why? I mean, it's against their entire philosophy to listen to anyone lesser to them. Right? Like, they don't have to listen. Only the lesser people have to obey. Right? So why would they listen to anyone lesser than themselves? Or perceived lesser than themselves?
Perceived. I mean, this hierarchy is very important.
Yep.
In their worldview, because they don't want to be at the bottom of the heap. Yep. Everyone above them is almost an enemy. You have to get above them.
Yep.
Clawing your way above the dog pile.
Yep.
Because it really sucks to be at the bottom. Because the people above you will eat you, literally.
Yep. Yep. And alive too, not just eat you. You'll be alive when they eat you, because that's important.
So I mean, there's this subset of people that are like this. Well,
the sad thing is that a lot of it's probably just ingrained. A lot of it's probably
they've been around for a long time.
They grew up in it, right?
There's a certain amount of abuse they endure that sort of insulate, and
that solidifies,
like reinforces.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so, and you look at. Man, there's a lot you look at, like, actors. Actors, I think, are one of the most interesting groups for this. Because they often span between the lower levels of this psychopathic group and the populace. They often bridge that gap. And sometimes there is people from the populace who make it into the actor field, right? And they don't really understand what's going on. And and for the psychopaths, it's great because then they means those people are on the lowest bottom rung of the pole, right?
Yeah. When you start, nothing.
Yeah.
And that persists. You really only know what you run into.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So then they don't publicize everything.
Nope.
And it's only now until they started publicizing some very strange things.
Yeah. Like there have been some stuff about pedophilia that they'd been advertising, right?
Yeah, it's like they're kicking up the message a notch.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't think I remember. I don't remember any of this stuff being out in the open before, where they're talking about.
It's just not to this degree, this frequency.
And at best,
it's just more often.
It was like NAMBLA, right? NAMBLA was there, and everyone laughed and derided and hated NAMBLA. And so, but now you get like Ellen DeGeneres talking with Sandra Bullock about, what the baby foreskins that they put on their face. What the hell? Like, that's just, what? That's crazy.
That's not something I don't think Sandra has really talked about.
No,
I don't know exactly why she agreed to go on the Ellen and to talk about this.
And I don't know how Ellen got this information. How does she know about this? It kind of seems a little weird all around to me.
Sandra was basically just controlling damage.
Yeah.
She just knew that this was going to be
weird as all hell, yeah.
And the audience would just be kind of like weirded out by it.
Yeah, and they were.
And they went ahead with that. But I think really what's going on is they see that these topics are coming up more and more with regular people.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure they frame that topic in a way that they control. So that they can control the conversation and the reaction.
I mean, they're desperately trying to control it. I don't think it's ever going to be controlled. I think that's going to be a taboo.
They have to dip their toes in it.
Yeah,
this was a minor thing. This is relatively minor. It doesn't.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're
trying to just move the goalpost.
Right, but
inch by inch.
Maybe, and maybe it will work. I don't see. Even if it were to eventually work, I don't think they have enough time. Right? I think the train is moving faster than they can move the goalposts. Right?
Yeah. And there are certain lines that people just cannot cross, except for them. Yeah. And I think there's something probably genetically different as well.
Maybe.
With some of these people as well.
Well, yeah, you get into like the ruling family lines, and they're so interbred, that they've gotten.
There's something different about how they process emotion or something, or empathy, and they kind of are the core of this this stuff. I think it just kind of emanates from them, and they're so willing, eager to embrace problems and create them. They go out of their way. That's what you were talking about, the Hegelian dialectic. It's just creating problems in a way that
you can
makes it beneficial to them.
Yeah. Create a problem that you can solve yourself, and then you can be the hero. That only if you create a problem that only you can solve, you're always the hero.
You use lies. They use lies, basically disinformation, to blame, their enemies for the problem that they created in secret.
Yeah. And then they can be the hero who goes after their own enemies with everyone behind them.
Yeah. So this is where the concept of the false flag came from.
Yep.
Is the Hegelian dialectic. It's really just one of those academic terms for referring to Hegel. Yeah.
Who proposed? I mean, Hegel put in. It was very Machiavellian. Like, this is what you should do.
Hegel was one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But
and they just rinse and repeat this cycle of creating problems, and to the point where I'm starting to wonder how many of the biggest problems are really, like, in part caused by them.
Yeah.
How many of the problems we've experienced in our lifetime are something that they have done for their own political agenda, whatever it is.
Yeah.
For their own power game that they're playing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples, which we don't need to go into because I only have a few more minutes. But
yeah, there are a lot of examples of them.
But what I wanted to let me go back really quick, because what I wanted to say was that there's a line people cannot cross with regards to problems.
Right.
Because they're by definition bad. We don't want them.
Right.
And some of them are worse than others.
Yeah.
Some of them are shockingly bad, even by most people's standards.
Yep.
And we're talking about this class of person that is creating some of these problems. They've crossed those lines on purpose.
Right. to create those problems, and
to create problems that people would find shocking.
And that's why they always. That's why they play with that duality, right? It's just a larger dialectic going on between, they have that savior, the hero class that then fights off the bad people who have crossed the line, but the savior class is just going to cross the line anyway, right? And it's going to continue on that path for as long as they can, until people finally say, enough. We need to solve problems, and we need to look for people who solve problems, and not, people who have these, who, for some reason, problems just seem to happen around them. I wonder how that happens. Right?
It's just really hard. There's not enough evidence to go around. So if you really need evidence to make sure you have the right guy, it's just going to be, a lot of people are going to walk. It's just not going to be your day. We just have to get, we have to, in a lot of ways, we have to get more into theory about understanding what's really going on. Take a step back, look at the pattern of what is it like? What's the word I'm looking at? There's the
pattern.
I keep thinking of this other word. But anyway, there's this pattern of not direct evidence, but just kind of like coincidence. Just a bunch of coincidences that are just coming at you like a storm.
It's like a...
And a lot of people will ignore it because they've been trained to not look at coincidences.
Right. But that's all explicanda, as you would say. Right?
Yeah, the more of it, the more constraint you have, and the better your
better your guesses will be. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean it's true, or more likely to be true, but it does mean it's a better guess, and you should go with that.
Right.